So again, welcome, Andreas. And yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what you were sort of working on as it relates to AI.
Yeah, thank you, Cecil, for having me. Yeah, we are building an AI application that we call Lucia. And this is a personalized AI assistant with a very strong focus on privacy. And I can go into the details later if you like, why privacy matters in the context of AI. But to give you a quick overview, what we see in future is that AI assistants will become the main interface for everyone to interact with the digital world. So you won't open up a Google web search anymore. You will ask your AI assistant, please research certain things, book an Uber, make a wire transaction for me, look for the latest sport news of my favorite football team, whatever. Yeah? So there is one super app that will more or less connect you to almost every other application or platform on the internet. And this will become a very personalized thing. Yeah? So with every interaction, this AI assistant will learn more about you and will also understand, okay, those are your preferences, your hobbies, your family and friends and connections and work life, and everything you touch more or less in the digital world will more or less end or go through these AI tools. And this is, of course, a pretty concerning thing if you think about who's owning these tools or who owns the data that goes through those tools. And that was more or less the initial idea why we decided to build our own platform here. Because if you look at today's solution, I would guess 99% of all AI applications out there are just using ChatGPT in the backend. Yeah.
So just to, not to cut you off, but actually I was going to say, just in your explanation, in a lot of cases, I feel like people, myself included, sort of already use ChatGPT as sort of like that personal assistant that you're describing. And then in addition to that, I'm just thinking about the ads on just a regular sort of Google search or web browsers that have learned our preferences and then cater towards advertising stuff to us, for example. Right. So I absolutely can see us going in that direction, like a one-stop shop where somebody or some entity, let's say, knows all this stuff about you.
And I think that the most critical part here is at the moment you have a kind of fragmentation across different providers and platforms. Yeah, let's say Instagram knows a lot about your private stuff. Yeah. Maybe LinkedIn knows a lot about your business-related connections, and there are many, many different applications. Maybe PayPal or your banking app knows about your spending behavior, but there is at the moment not one overarching entity that has control or access to all of this. Yeah, and with AI assistant tools, you will see it pretty soon that those assistants offer then the option to connect certain other applications, certain other platforms to make it more convenient for you. Yeah, so you don't need to open Uber anymore. Yeah? You just order your food directly through the interface. Yeah? And of course, as you mentioned, that's the dream of every advertiser because you get the entire picture. Yeah, so you as a user become fully transparent to those platform providers.
So I'm just wondering, so your platform, how would it differ from, for example, sites that are already out there like a ChatGPT?
Exactly. Yeah. So the main difference here is ChatGPT hosts the entire system on their own servers, and they are allowed to read the messages. Yeah. So it's even clearly defined in the terms of usage. You can look it up. It doesn't matter if it's Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT. All of them are allowed to read your conversations and also to utilize the information to train their future models. Yeah. So that's a quite complicated thing. if you think about, you upload maybe some confidential stuff or personal information, yeah, medical records or financial statements to ask questions with AI. All those informations are stored somewhere in Silicon Valley and can be utilized for the next generation models. And in our approach, we separate the private information layer fully from those third-party APIs by operating open source LLM models in a secure environment. So you can imagine it that way. If you activate the privacy mode in the application, you spin up your own ChatGPT environment that isn't connected to Anthropic, that isn't connected to OpenAI. It's a self-hosted thing. So we provide the infrastructure with the GPUs and everything you need to run AI. And if you activate this mode, then you create a secure environment where the LLM is running in a protected environment. So that's called TEE.
Just to reiterate, what is LLM? What would that be?
Yeah, so LLM stands for large language model, and that's exactly what ChatGPT is. So the experience that you have this chat interface, this chat window, and those large language models run on very expensive hardware. So those GPUs mainly on hardware from NVIDIA. So that's also the reason why they are so in the news lately, because they sell the shovels for the gold rush. They sell the infrastructure for all the AI applications. And those GPUs are pretty expensive and not affordable for, I would say, a normal user like us, because such a cluster starts, I would say, about with $100,000, and you need to run it in a data center. So it's really very complicated to operate these things. And our idea was, okay, if a private person cannot spin up such an infrastructure, why don't we share the infrastructure with a large group of subscribers? We have many users, and they can pay a monthly subscription and share the backend together. So because you can run many applications on those clusters, so they are designed to support also thousands of users, of course.
So just to reiterate, so the concern really is that like sites like Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT ultimately are creating what it sounds like is a monopoly over AI usage. And I guess the obvious concern is, well, there's just one place is gonna have sort of all my information, but it's under the guise of like different sort of umbrellas. But I guess like just to play devil's advocate, because I talk to people about this, and I think for some people, they've kind of thrown their hands up, right? And they say, I don't read the fine print when I download a new app. And I know that there is some fine print there that allows them to sort of follow me or take my information and sell it to other outside parties. And I just think about other shows that I've seen, like on Netflix, for example, Black Mirror. And I think in some ways, a lot of people have really just sort of given up. And I was just wondering if maybe you could speak to like, what is the problem with a site like ChatGPT having all of your information? What are the concerns there?
Absolutely. I think it's exactly as you described. If you talk to normal people, it happens also in my surrounding, my friends and family and colleagues. If you talk to people outside of this AI space, no one really cares about privacy, because you have the same issue with Google, you have the same issue with Facebook and all those platforms. So they already know everything about me. And there is also this really weird notion that if I'm a good citizen, I don't have anything to hide. So
yes,
which is weird.
Actually, that's an excuse that I use a lot. Like, I don't have anything to hide. They can come get me, whatever. Right. So that's a really good point. So
Definitely a good question. Yeah, why do we need privacy? Why do we care at all? Yeah, about those things. And I think a very important aspect is, so far the worst thing that could happen was that you get personalized advertisements. Yeah. If you are looking for, I don't know, running shoes, all of a sudden on every app you see running shoes ads. Yeah. So it's annoying, but it doesn't hurt. Yeah. But in future, if we go back to the previous conversation, yeah, if AI knows everything about you, every detail from your private life and your work life, your preferences, hobbies, your entire history, and all your emails and messaging apps, and everything is included into the mix. They can, of course, create much more damage with this. Yeah, it's like the current system on steroids. Yeah, 100x more efficient to personalize, to target you as a customer, and they know exactly how to approach you. Yeah, and every user will get a customized campaign. Yeah, because AI can do this pretty easily. So it's not one advertisement campaign for everyone. It's really an individual clip, probably. Yeah, that speaks to Cecile. And no one else gets the same advertisement, yeah, because they know everything about you. So this is pretty concerning, of course. And on the other hand, if you think about, yeah, malicious actors, yeah, this is also a major problem. Imagine there is maybe a hack, data gets leaked.
Which happens.
You see it already. Yeah, it happens. And if you think about those deep fake videos and how good AI is in impersonating you, yeah, you
Those
just
really
need some additional information, and they call your mother on a video call with your face, your voice, and they can provide some details about the conversation you had through WhatsApp, yeah, last week. So it is impossible to distinguish this fake person from the real person anymore. Yeah, and I think this is also quite dangerous. Yeah, if you reveal too much of your private stuff online.
Yeah, I mean, obviously now after your explanation, it really speaks to this idea of like surveillance, right? Like, and obviously that goes part and parcel with this concept of privacy. And yeah, you're basically always being watched. And I think we've, as a society, have accepted that to an extent. But when you start mentioning things like deep fakes and them being able to now take your information and essentially turn you into whoever they want you to be, that is a really scary concept. So exactly. I'm understanding a little bit now why this might be a problem. Because we looked at it a lot like an assistant. This just makes my life easier, but we don't look at maybe the dark side of it as much. And then I think the flip side too is that some people do look at the dark side of AI, and this is going to transition into my next question, but when they do look at the dark side of AI, it's fear. And it's fear, and I'm hearing this a lot recently, but it's fear around my job getting replaced. And so people are very much like wanting to keep AI over here just because they're worried that it is going to, you know, replace their job in some way. So we've seen it in other areas. Like, for example, the first thing that comes to mind is grocery stores. For me, when I go into my grocery store, there's probably 2 cashiers, and then there's about 15 different automated sort of machines where you can just pay on your own. But again, under this umbrella of education, I'm just wondering, because a lot of people are concerned about that, what do you say actually to people that fear that AI is going to replace teachers? Like, what then would a teacher's role in education perhaps become?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think it's, yeah, as you mentioned, not just in education, it's more or less in almost every area.
Every industry, yeah, absolutely.
Every industry is somehow affected. And I think it mainly depends also on the future development of AI. Yeah? How smart will it get, yeah, in 5 years, in 10 years? Yeah, so no one knows exactly if we already hit, let's say, the ceiling in intelligence, and we only make small improvements from here on, or is there really a revolutionary breakthrough and all of a sudden you see an AI that is 100 times smarter than a human, yeah, which brings its own category of problems with it. Yeah, so this will be even worse. But let's assume with today's standard, I think you can already automate a lot of stuff. So AI is pretty good in clearly defined rule-based environments. Let's take an example. Let's say a bank or an insurance company. There is really everything is outlined, and there are rules and definition in the policies. Okay, if this happens, then that. So there is no uncertainty. Yeah? So in that case, I see clearly that this will be very quickly replaced by software, by AI, and you don't need to have a human operator there going through all those different terms. I see that there will be still human, of course, but they have like an army of AI agents under their operation. Yeah, so they just control the thing, and I see it in a similar way in the educational system. Yeah. I don't think that we will replace teachers. Yeah, to be clear, I think education is much more than just teaching a language or explain calculus. So there is also a human part involved. Yeah, so sometimes it's even more important. Yeah, to understand. Okay, what's going on? Yeah, with my students. Yeah. Do they have some personal issues? Yeah, is that the reason why they don't perform well now? And maybe I have to talk to them, to figure out what's going on. Yeah, so those things are not easy to do with AI, because I think it's a very personal level of communication.
Yeah, and we talk about this in education all the time. It's an overused word, but we talk about building relationships. And obviously, it's kind of hard for AI to do that, although I do believe in some ways that AI learns about you, it can do that. But I remember in our previous conversation, we just talked a little bit about the role of a teacher changing or sort of transforming, let's say, into that of a mentor, more so than like the keeper of knowledge that's going to stand at the front of the room and just like fill your head as a student with all this information. And I think that there's some value in that, actually, because for someone like myself that's been doing this for a really long time, it's quite taxing to be able to meet the needs of each individual student, especially if you consider the fact that now we're dealing with not just education, but perhaps mental health issues and needs that need to be met as well before the learning can even start. So like, I know that you and I talked about how we have used AI for like our own children, for example, to help them and support them with their learning. And I wonder if you could maybe talk a little bit more about that, like how you were able to help support your own kids and how maybe that idea can be transferred to like the classroom.
Absolutely. I fully agree with your points that I think over the past years and decades, a lot in the educational system moved towards bureaucracy as well. Yeah, so you have the teacher is not focused on teaching anymore. There are so many other things. Yeah. And on the other hand, there is maybe also a cut in the budget. So you need to have more students per class, and there is more pressure on it. Yeah, and you have to fill reports and doing assessments all the time. Yeah, and then there is a little left for teaching, and then you should also do those personalized relationship management. Yeah, with the students. Exactly. It's definitely a huge challenge, for every teacher out there. And we see definitely that the biggest low-hanging fruit here to improve the overall system is that you offload some work, some repetitive work that doesn't have anything to do with teaching, to those AI tools. So you can spend more time with your students or create new materials or whatsoever. So that's the main goal of our application here. And talking about my own experiences as a father. So I have also two daughters, age of 11 and 8. So it's very current topic for me.
It's close to home for sure. Me as well. So yeah.
And that's definitely a thing that I've recognized, that sometimes, yes, students need more time to understand a certain thing, or they are not ready yet, or there is a missing piece, that prevents to make click
Absolutely.
for them.
Gaps perhaps in the learning that maybe the previous teacher didn't address. So,
Exactly.
and that's consistent. Like that's a very common and real thing in education.
Exactly. And I recognize this, that in some cases they understand it very quickly, and sometimes they really struggle, and it takes weeks until they get it. And it's really painful to them. And at that moment, I tried to utilize AI in that way, that I asked, I think, ChatGPT or Claude, to explain this topic in 10 different ways. So it really generated random approaches, to explain the same thing, and one of those hit, and my daughters really understood complex things within an afternoon, where they struggled for 2 weeks before in school,
Right.
because the way it was presented didn't match with their way of processing information. Probably, I don't know.
Right. And there's who knows what exactly it is, but there are various different factors. And again, hearing that as a teacher, and just like for our audience that's listening, like to do that, and this is what teachers do on a normal basis, to do this essentially like triaging, figuring out where the gaps are in the learning for a class of 20 to 40 different students is pretty challenging. And it means that you're not just doing this work during the hours that you're in the school building. That means you're doing extra work on the weekends and at home and all of that. And so to outsource the work, as you mentioned, and having something like ChatGPT come up with those 10 different ways, or a simplified way of explaining it. Like I did the same thing with my son, and it's been a game changer for us. It's been so helpful because whatever topic he's struggling with, I've been able to use certain prompts in ChatGPT and have it come up with like a work package that meets him where he's at. So it addresses those gaps that he might have. So again, there's a lot of usefulness to these things. And again, like in education, we're already using it in some ways, in the sense that like for writing report cards, we will see that teachers are now using this technology, because when it comes to writing report cards, you're essentially writing an essay for each student, right? So again, how do we offload the work a little bit? How do we get some of our time back to be able to spend with our families and actually like live our own lives as well, right? So there's a lot of value in what you're saying. And I hope people are starting to recognize the benefits, but also some of the things that are concerns, like you talked about as well. And to not just be so like ChatGPT supporters, because again, there's a privacy issue that exists. And so for people like you that are creating these types of new apps that actually focus on people's privacy and really just help to support them is, again, a meaningful thing. And it's just a world that we're all starting to learn about. And I think we don't know a lot about, but even just your explanation of what these types of things do and what's actually happening in real time is really helpful, I think, for people to sort of just start learning about what's out there and where
I think
we're going.
it's definitely a very powerful technology, but I think there are also many hurdles, for the introduction of such a thing, because it's not just to download an app and you're done. It also needs, of course, the involvement of the teachers, to really understand, okay, how to use those new opportunities and tools. So you can imagine it is possible now to spin up, let's say, a personal tutor for every single student that is available 24/7. Yeah?
Absolutely possible
That's
today in
great. It's a
2025.
great approach. Yeah, but even if you have this magic power, yeah, you also need to coordinate those 30, 40 tutors. Yeah, imagine you really would have a person. Yeah, you would have all of a sudden 20 assistants. Yeah, sitting in your class and
Yes,
running
absolutely.
around. Yeah, they also need some coordination. They need to know what to do. They need to understand the goals. They need to know, okay, what is my job to do and when do I need to call, yeah, for the main teacher, yeah, and all those things are heavily related towards, yeah, project management, team leading skills, and it's a complete new thing also in the educational system, yeah, that is new, and I think this is definitely a hurdle that we need to resolve, because, yeah, teachers need to understand, okay, what does that mean? Yeah, if I want to introduce AI in my process, what are the requirements, and what is my role in this? Yeah, so you mentioned this mentorship before, yeah, and
Exactly.
I clearly see this, yeah, that the teacher is more or less the manager, has a dashboard with all the metrics, yeah, and those metrics are delivered by those virtual tutors. Yeah, you have those AI agents for every student, and they have certain goals, and they monitor their progress and how they perform, and they report more or less, yeah, to the teacher, yeah, how it's going. And then you see, okay, there is this trajectory for each student, and if something is off, you can react, yeah, and then you interact and step in and can spend maybe more time with this student because he struggles with certain things.
With certain areas. Yeah. And again, to be fair, for the teachers that are listening, like we have things like this that are already in place, but this just brings it up a notch. So like I think of programs like Markbook, things like Power School, where you can keep track of students' progress, if you will, whether it's late absences or even their schoolwork. Like it'll come up with like graphs for you and different ways of demonstrating those metrics. But like I said earlier, this just brings it up to another level because the AI will have the context. They'll know this student and know other factors or mitigating factors that might affect this student. And so again, it's just taking it up a notch. And so the issue there for me when I hear this is the problem is that sometimes a lot of our students are more advanced than us when it comes to that technology piece. And actually, in education, some of my older colleagues and even some people that are my age, there's a little bit of resistance sometimes when it comes to technology. Like we look at the pandemic, and many people decided, you know what, I can't do this online learning thing. So they decide I'm putting in my resignation, or this is the time I'm going to retire. And so I wonder, like, how we might be able to address some of that resistance when it comes to this stuff, because it's very beneficial, very useful. But then when you hear the privacy piece, and then other people might just be set in their ways, it's like, how do we convince people that this is really the way to go when they're demonstrating this pushback or resistance?
Mm. Yeah, I think there are also different reasons, yeah, why teachers should pay attention. Yeah, so I think it's not only in the educational system, but let's imagine we are in the same company or the same school, and I don't want to utilize AI, and you are embracing it. Yeah. So all of a sudden, maybe you are 10 times more productive, yeah, than I am. And you provide a much better learning experience. Yeah. And everyone is asking to join your
Right,
lessons.
like
Yeah.
what are you doing? Yeah, what is how is the
and
process?
no one want to come to me, yeah, so anymore. Yeah. So there will be also some kind of pressure, because, yeah, based on the results, yeah, that you can create if you utilize those technologies or those tools.
Right.
Yeah, it's a similar thing, I guess, like with using computers. Yeah, in school or using the internet. Yeah. So if you reject those things, sooner or later you get in trouble. Yeah, because everyone does it, and
Everyone's
if you're the
using it.
only one that resists, then it's pretty challenging. Yeah.
Mhm.
But of course, there are also other reasons that I think very important to address. Yeah, I think many people are skeptical, and that has a good reason, definitely. Yeah. So I also want to highlight the risks, yeah, that are involved if you have, let's say, a centralized authority that more or less manages everything that goes through the AI. I think that's not the right approach. Yeah, I think it must stay on a very individual level as well. Yeah, so that the teacher need to have control about the properties and the functionalities and the content and everything. Yeah, so it should stay in a personalized way. Yeah, so otherwise you would have maybe one centralized authority somewhere in the government, and they dictate every school from now on gets exactly the same thing, and we download it to every school, and every AI solution there, yeah, will teach exactly the same. So
Yeah, and
I think
that's
that would
exactly,
be the worst outcome, yeah, possible.
yeah, that's what we don't want in education, because that then throws this whole idea of critical thinking out of the window, because somebody's just telling you how to think and how to be. And to be honest with you, what I'm hearing from you too is that a lot of this is data dependent. Like, people need to be open and willing to try this out, and not only that, to study and take data essentially on whether or not this is working. Like, I think about this idea of introducing technology into the classroom, and everybody just assumes, like, yeah, if, like, one of the things we do with underfunded schools, for example, is we say, okay, let's give them more money, or let's give them more technology, but we don't necessarily audit how that money's being used, right? Or we don't really take stock of what the technology is being used for. We just assume, throw the money at them or give them the computers, and automatically the test scores will increase. And that's not always the case. Like, I think about, like, teaching lessons where, for example, I could come up with this a lesson that takes like 2 or 3 days to teach, and they're doing all these interesting things online, or I could just sometimes explain it in like 30 seconds and then give them some practice, right? And that wouldn't take me 3 days. That would take me part of a period. So it's just interesting, but like, research is needed. Data is, I think, would be very beneficial to support this idea, because I do believe, like, and we've seen it with our own children, that it can work. But yeah, I think we need to be more willing as a society to look at, to research and study and look at what the data is.
I think one major key is a long-term memory attached to the AI, because if you work with ChatGPT today, yeah, if you open the window, it's more or less, yeah, a blank slate. You need to provide a lot of context
A
information
lot
to
of
get a good
context, absolutely.
response. And if you close the window, yeah, you start from scratch again, yeah, more or less. Yeah. And especially in education, if you talk about these tutor AI agents, then it's mandatory that they track the progress. Yeah? They need to understand from the first conversation, from the first assessment, from the first chat history on how's the trajectory, yeah, of the development going. Yeah, and so you need to collect a lot of information, and this is also a bit concerning to me if you would upload everything to OpenAI, for example.
100%. Well, now that what we know about, like, that information being used to do so many other things, probably even some other things that we haven't even touched on, yeah, the idea is very scary, especially when you're talking about children, because they're very vulnerable as well. And that just makes me think, because I've already seen similar things with deep fakes. Like, I've heard of people telling you to be wary of posting pictures of your kids online, because those images can then be used to kind of like mimic what they'll be like when they're older, and then be used for various different, like, scary, like, things, let's just say. But yeah, there's a lot of value in this. And the privacy piece, now I realize, is is more of a concern than I thought it was, because I've been using ChatGPT, and one thing I like about ChatGPT is the context that you can give it, so that it sort of knows where you're coming from, and it can answer your question based on your situation.
So if you have, let's say, this long-term memory, you don't need to provide a lot of context anymore in future, yeah? Because it already knows you. Yeah, it knows everything about you. Or the previous conversations. It knows your style of writing. It knows how you respond in emails. It knows everything, so it can be much more efficient. You just say, okay, do this, and it already knows all the 20 different details that are attached to this task. Yeah. So that's the vision. And I think one aspect you mentioned is also quite important. Yeah, that's the financial aspect, of course. Yeah. So this shouldn't become a technology that is only available for the top tier educational institutions. Yeah, it should be a tool that more or less levels the playing field. Yeah, because it is quite cheap and affordable. Yeah, to get. You don't need any special hardware. So if you have a smartphone, you're ready to go, more or less. Yeah. So it is really, really accessible. And I think this will also bring a large change in the way we can interact or offer premium education here. Yeah. So I recently looked up how much is spent in tutoring each year, and it's a crazy number. Yeah, I think it's about, I'm not sure, $30 billion in the US alone, per year. Wow. And I think on average there was a number of about $300 per household is spent on tutoring monthly. Yeah, and if you have, let's say, an app, so our approach is to offer this app at $30 a month. Yeah, so. Also, this makes a huge change. Yeah, if you cannot afford a private teacher or a tutor for your children, with such solutions, it's much more affordable. Yeah, so to invest $30 is much easier to do than 300, or more.
Well, I would say, again, depending on the subject and the age of the student, I would say tutoring probably ranges anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour in some cases. So this would be a steal. And like you say, a personalized tutor, just to like piggyback off something that you said earlier as well. Like, I'm just thinking about the context piece, and teachers at the end of each year, as they write the report cards, they're putting this information into the app. And so the app then has more information about that student, like how they were doing that particular year, so that when they do start in a new grade with a new teacher, the context is already there. We're not starting from scratch, and that just kind of follows their trajectory. So there's something to be said about that, and can be a real game changer in education if we use it wisely. And like you're saying, don't just have one provider that has a monopoly over everything, really.
Exactly. So, and this is our approach to introduce this technology into the market, because I guess you also know, if we talk about institutions and governmental projects, you cannot do this within 6 months or a year. So we're talking about many years down the line until the educational system is ready and has implemented those things. So it's a future vision that probably take a decade. I don't know how quick we can.
It would be great for us to start now.
But we have the technology already available, and I was thinking about, okay, how can we still introduce it to be beneficial for the students? And our approach is to offer this private tutoring services. So it's not used maybe in the classroom next year, but you can already use it at home, for your learning problems, and you don't need to hire a tutor. You can more or less download the app and train at home with your private AI solution.
Yeah, I love that vision. And honestly, I think that most people watching would agree with me that this is clearly where education is going. I just feel like sometimes it feels like we need to just be quicker. That's just my personal opinion. But I'm going to just, this is a new segment that we're trying to do on this podcast. So I'm just going to ask you a closing question. I know we talked a lot about like your platform, but one thing that I find is that everybody can relate to education in some way. Everybody has an opinion about education, whether they went to a public school, a private school, they were homeschooled, whatever the case may be. And so I wanted to end off our conversation today by asking you the following. What would you say are the most useless, in your perspective, in your education, what would you say are the most useless and valuable things that you've learned in school, and why?
That's a good one. Yeah. You mentioned before, yeah, that we should move faster in certain areas and try to be up to date with certain developments. And I remember, yeah, one of the worst experiences I had was in high school. There we had I think it was telecommunication, and the professor was also a quite old guy, close to retirement, and he had his standard program used for, I don't know, 20 years. So he never changed anything.
Mhm.
And I remember back then, yeah, I had to learn how those landline connections work. And we spent about 3 weeks learning how this rotary dial phone works. Yeah. And back then it's decades ago, but back
Right,
then
right, right.
already it was retired for more than 20 years. There was not a single country on earth using this thing. Yeah.
But
And
still you were being taught this technology.
and we had to learn books and hundreds of pages of useless information, and that really was frustrating to me. And I can still remember, like it was yesterday, how upset I was, yeah, to waste my precious time and brain capacity, doing something that I will
Understand.
never use at all, yeah, in future.
Yeah,
So
no, it
that,
reminds me of when my students say, when will I ever have to use this? Why do I have to learn this? Like it sort of addresses that thing. And I thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Because I think when I ask this question to people, there will be some overlap with some of the
absolutely.
stuff that education historically has done. But
I
on
can
that,
also share the best one I had. I remember also most surprising that I had. That was also in high school. There was another teacher, and I remember the first day in the first class, he asked, "Okay, guys, we have to take a decision. So either we do it in the normal standard default way. So you learn and memorize everything, and we have the standard questions,
Mhm.
or you can use whatever material and cheat sheets you want, also during the exams. So you need to vote on it. Yeah, we're pretty surprised what's going on. We are allowed to use cheat sheets, and
Yeah,
yeah, of course we decided, yeah, to use cheat sheets. Yeah, it was
of course,
a clear
because
decision.
memory is sort of not necessary as much
And
in this
then
day.
yeah, and then it
Just
was really challenging, yeah, because he had also changed the difficulty level, of course, yeah, of all the exams, and we calculated really crazy stuff, but it was at the end a great experience for everyone, yeah, because you were proud about it, yeah, you resolved things that they did in university at the highest PhD levels, yeah, and you need to figure it out yourself, yeah. So we all learned that it's not about, yeah, memorizing certain things. It's more how to find the right information and how to apply it to the problem you have, yeah. So it
exactly.
was a great thing, yeah, to learn. And so, yeah, those are the two things that I can share about
Yeah.
my learning experience.
So I'm so sorry. I just actually have one follow-up question, actually, because the concept or the theme of our conversation in large part has been about AI. How do you think students should learn about AI moving forward? Should it be in a computer science class? Like, what would that curriculum look like? Should it be weaved into like regular education? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I'm sure it will be part in almost every educational lesson soon, yeah, because it will dominate every area of our private life. Um, But I think, the best approach is definitely open ChatGPT and ask questions. So it can explain pretty well how it works and what's the underlying technology, and it can also break down complicated things into very simple explanations. I think that's definitely the power of AI. And I'm pretty surprised also about this vibe coding trend. Maybe you have heard about that
No,
people
I
with
haven't actually.
yeah, that's really, really crazy. You need to try it yourself. So there are meanwhile some platforms where you can create your own software, your own tools or apps without any development skills, any software development skills. Yeah. And they call it vibe coding. So you are just talking to AI what you want, and it creates the code.
We'll create
And
the
then you
code.
can run it. And there are already some startups and some founders, young guys, 16-year-old guys doing some vibe coding at home from their mom's basement, and they started their own online business. Yeah, they're selling apps on the store, making hundreds of thousands in revenue. Yeah, and
So like this is the thing for me, and this is where I'm trying not to add too much of my opinion, but this is the thing for me. We have things like this that are available out there, and just like you spoke to a bit, in education, we're still sort of doing this model where we're teaching things how things used to be instead of teaching how things are going to be. And it's like we need to come to a medium ground. Like, I get it. There's a part of us that needs to know what things have been like in the past. And obviously, we use things in the past and build on them for now. But I feel like even just what you said to me, I did not know that. That's a game changer, right? And so,
absolutely.
like, we're doing coding. Like, I work in a school, and they just put this in our curriculum that students have to learn quote unquote coding, but I'd be hard pressed. I have a feeling that a lot of teachers are unaware that these things exist as well, that you just discussed. So I just feel like there's, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of catching up that we need to do as a society when it comes to like treating education like a priority and using it for like the future, if that makes sense. But thank
Exactly.
you very much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge and your platform, obviously. And I just like the whole vision. I, again, appreciate the fact that you're not trying to keep people's private information. And I think that's the big takeaway from this, is that while the AI exists, we still need to be mindful about how our questions and our information that we share is being used, right? So that, even just that, there's a lot of learning there, I think, for me and hopefully for the people that are watching this.
Absolutely.
But again, for your time, Andreas, we really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
It
was a fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people want to find out more about like your platform or where to find you or contact you, how can they do that?
So if you're interested to get early access to your private AI solution, you can visit our website, pindora.io, and there is a waitlist form you can fill. And I think that's the best way to catch us. And there is also a contact button if you want to get in touch with us directly. Send us a message. Happy to explore some ideas. If you're in the educational field and maybe want to try something or want to give us feedback, that would be highly appreciated.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm worried, but also optimistic that this thing is going to explode. I just don't want you to be bombarded with messages. But
absolutely, no problem. So we are here to change also the future of education, to make the world better. I do this because I want to make the world a better place for my daughters. And I think if we take control now and not just wait until the big tech guys develop their solution, and exactly. I think it's the right time now to act.
I love that. Thank you so much. And we're on the same wavelength there. That's part of the vision for this podcast as well, is just to kind of give people an idea of what exists out there, because education is a vast space, and there's a lot of good things happening, like you just mentioned. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and
Thank you,
appreciate
Cecile.
everything you had to share. All right, take care.
Bye.